I just got promoted, guys. I can call her Dr. Pam.
It ultimately affects the community and the people. And this is where Earth observation becomes a tool of justice in that sense. From space, Earth observation data, satellite data looks really neat, clean.
Oh, yeah.
The last 10, 12 days. Now, spectral signatures in a monocropped field is much easier to pick out than spectral signatures in a heterogeneous, diverse, smallholder landscape like what we have in Africa.
I love the position that you've put yourself in, because you're at the perfect confluence between data, policy, and also trying to look at the foreseeable future.
Focus on the problem, okay? And then merge the problem with the techniques. Look at it in a more holistic manner and ask yourself the why. The why question is very important. Why am I doing this?
Podcast.
All right. Welcome to the first episode of the Young Professional segment of the Geobari podcast. And my name is Linus Anari. And to start us off is one of by far the most chill and coolest lecturers I personally have ever gotten to meet. And we all know her. We all love her. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Pamela Ochungo.
Thank you so much, Linus.
Welcome to the stage. And may I say how fast you are at accepting this invitation? Until I felt so humbled, because you are Dr. Pamela Ochungo. I mean, you are probably at the British Institute of East Africa doing some research, or maybe the lecturer took, or maybe even a mother with your kids maybe doing something, or even I don't know, trying to save Earth from the next environmental crisis. I don't know, but yeah, you decided to take this time off to actually come and have a chat on this episode. And I'm truly, truly honored. We are all truly honored, I'm pretty sure. By the way,
thank you.
What have you been up to?
Thank you, Linus, for that. And I'm really privileged to be here. And you know that when you call, I will come, because I support these initiatives so much. So I, as you have said, I am teaching at the Technical University of Kenya at the School of Surveying and Spatial Sciences. So my lectures are continuing. Mm-hmm. I'm also doing research with the British Institute in Eastern Africa. And this is under a project that is called MISAM. So MISAM is a mouthful, but it stands for Mapping Africa's Endangered Archaeological Sites and Monuments. So we are essentially doing remote sensing there to find out which sites, archaeological sites, which heritage sites are under threat, and how can we use remote sensing to flag them, and therefore, where can interventions go? Yes.
Right. Actually, congratulations. You just mentioned MISAM. I remembered something. How many things haven't you been recognized for? Let's start from there, because you've been recognized by almost everything. Let's start with the most recent one, the Satellite Magazine.
Yes.
Which was like the top 50 globally of the people using satellite data for impact in Africa. Leave alone that. Digital Earth Africa recently also recognized you on the same, I think, for your the archaeological and the heritage preservation culture. Congratulations. You're actually doing quite a lot. I feel like as though the shoes are really big for us to feel.
I'm humbled. The more you get this recognition, the more you realize how little you know, and it sparks your curiosity to want to know more and to do better.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
All right. Anyway, let's first kick off this. I've been following up on a lot of your posts on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure most of people have, especially those who are actually like, you know what, you need to invite Dr. Pam back. Dr. Pamela, Dr. Pamela, Dr. Pam, Dr. Pam.
Thank you.
And before I proceed, should I call you Dr. Pam or Dr. Pamela?
Dr. Pam is good.
Dr. Pam is good.
Dr.
All right.
Pam is good.
I just got promoted, guys. I can call her Dr. Pam. Anywho, so following on your LinkedIn posts, I must say that not most people view Earth observation from the semblance that you do. I feel like as though you are more deep into it, and also from the nuance perspective and the subtle aspects about Earth observation that most people tend to ignore, they oftentimes go unnoticed. And there's something that you mentioned about a perspective of using Earth observation for equality, care, and what was it? And justice. Could you please expound further what you mean by that exactly?
Okay.
From remote sensing, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very important question. Thank you, Linus. Now, when we talk about Earth observation for justice, care, equality, what we mean is, when we are observing Earth from space, the whole purpose of this observation and analysis is to be able to detect where are issues occurring. For instance, where are the environmental changes occurring? Is deforestation occurring somewhere in Mau Forest? Is deforestation occurring in Karura? Is there flooding in Ahero, in Kisumu? Is there flooding in Tana River? So, when you detect this, then you flag it, and then interventions are sent to those places. And in essence, when interventions are sent, it impacts the people who live in those places. So therefore, they benefit from the interventions that are brought there, from, let's say, for instance, if they are to be rescued from floods and taken to higher ground, or if they're to be, to be asked to plant more trees, to carry out afforestation, to improve the environment, etc., it ultimately affects the community and the people. And this is where Earth observation becomes a tool of justice in that sense. Mm-hmm. So it takes the interventions to places where they're needed, okay? Mm-hmm. And then as a tool for care, it becomes, you're caring for people who have problems, if it's a food security issue, if it's a drought issue, right? Yeah. So you're flagging, you're using your Earth observation to say that this is where we have drought. What can we do about it? And therefore, as a policy issue, then interventions are taken to where there's drought. The people who are suffering from drought and famine can therefore be helped, because Earth observation has been used to detect, to identify areas where there are problems. And therefore, interventions are taken there, and the people, the communities are therefore helped. And in that sense, it becomes a tool for justice and care.
Okay,
Yes. So it's not just doing Earth observation for the sake of it, but it's more of how can it then impact those who need the most care and the most justice. Yeah, flagging where do we have an equitable distribution, for instance, of schools? Then the people who have to walk 3 kilometers to get to an early childhood development institute, then get one that is at 500 meters. That is a tool for justice.
Right. Okay, yes. I see.
Yes.
Can you just take a moment and address how well spoken that was? I see why you are a lecturer. I think yeah, you are born for this. But also, I believe you're one of the people who actually worked with Earth observation data. Like, you have a tremendous track record of Earth observation data. You said that you graduated from in 1999 from the previous episode that we recorded.
Yes.
And at the time, there were like opportunities were so many. You started with being a remote sensing analyst,
GIS.
I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you are doing a lot of analysis. And over the years, I'm pretty sure you've gotten to see the development of remote sensing.
Absolutely.
In terms of the data, and which has also informed the challenges that Africa has in terms of the public data sets that we have. Because I'm sure as Africa, we don't really have the same computing power as probably other well-developed countries, the US, Europe, and many, many others. What are some of the challenges to impact on the ground from your perspective, especially when it comes to the utilization of this remotely sensed data, like the remotely sensitive? Like, what are the challenges in the utilization of them from an African perspective?
Yeah, thank you so much, Linus. That's a really important question. Now, from space, Earth observation data, satellite data looks really neat, clean. The last 10, 12 days, everybody has been talking about, looking at the Earth from moon, etc. It looks fascinating, right?
Yeah, from a distance.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It looks great. Now, the reality on the ground is very different, because, first of all, there's processing that has to take place, okay?
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of processing, for instance, you have to take care of corrections, atmospheric corrections, geometric, etc. But the beauty is nowadays a lot of data is coming in analysis ready. Now, even though it's analysis ready, it still has to be contextualized. So number one, in Africa, we are working in resource-constrained environments, As you mentioned, there's, sometimes unreliable internet. And a lot of what we are being told, work on cloud, just push your data to the cloud. You don't need, a powerful computer, you can work on the cloud, but cloud requires internet, okay? You must be connected to the internet. So we are having unreliable internet connections, and especially when you're out of Nairobi, for instance. We have, limited funds. You do need to have funds to be able to process, sometimes purchase some of this data. You need, and sometimes, this area is highly technical, and you need, people who have the capacity. Many times we are, you're finding very small technical teams working in really large landscapes, diverse landscapes, yeah? So these are major challenges that affect how remote sensing can be used on the ground. And again, you see, we have very, neat models that are created in the West. Let's say, for instance, crop mapping model or drought
prediction
model,
as well. Yeah,
prediction model, all those that we see around. And beautiful papers are written about them, and they talk of scalability. But when you come to Africa, you find a problem when you're trying to scale this. Why? Number one, we have such complex landscapes. These complex landscapes consist of diversity and heterogeneity that in the West, you find a very different picture. For instance, in the West, you'll find that you have monocropping. So if they're growing what they call corn, our maize, it is corn, a cornfield. Then they have maybe a beetroot field, etc. Now, as we know from remote sensing, there's something called spectral signatures.
Right.
Now, spectral signatures in a monocropped field is much easier to pick out than spectral signatures in a heterogeneous, diverse, smallholder landscape like what we have in Africa.
Yeah.
A recent study we've had in Busia, and which we're hoping to get the paper published soon, we're looking at smallholder farms. Now, one small farm, and they're small. One small farm can have 6-7 crops. A farm has maize, it has sugarcane, it has beans, it has cassava, millet, bananas. Now you want to map crop types in such a farm. How many spectral signatures do you have to deal with? And that are very similar because it's all vegetation.
Yeah.
So essentially, picking out the different spectral signatures for these crops becomes a challenge. And therefore, that neat model that has been developed for crop type distinction in the West may not fit here. And so therefore, you need to have a lot of ground data, a lot of validation, and tweaking and adapting of these neat models to fit into our particular context, which is very different from the West. So these are some of the major challenges.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow. I think I get you from that perspective, which means now you need to start again creating a new model, in short. Like you're tweaking it, but there's going to be a lot of adjustments.
Yes.
So to speak.
There'll be adjustments. You don't have to create a new model, but you can introduce other techniques to ensure that that model also fits into ours. For instance, what we do is take into account what you call phenology. So phenology looks at seasonality of each of these crops. Okay, so for instance, when maize is starting to green and sugarcane, they might look the same. But as they progress and in time, maybe maize will grow faster, okay, than sugarcane. And therefore, using phenological analysis, then you're able to pick out. So I don't say create new models, but adapt and tweak the existing models. Exactly.
Oh, right. Yeah. And also in your post, there's something that you mentioned about this whole aspect about nowadays it's going to a point whereby it's so easy to do the data analysis, but the policy aspect, like communication from one side to another, because it's the same thing that Catherine Nakalembe from Uganda was also speaking about in one of her TED talks about like the communication aspect or just trying to bridge that gap between data and policy. How has that been from your side, like from an African research perspective, scientist?
Thank you. And that is one of the biggest challenges that we have. You know, when we produce the maps, you have the data, produce the map, and you think this is the end. Because maybe this is a project that you have been doing for 2 years, and the end product is the data and the maps, right? So you think this is the end. But in reality, this is the beginning. Why? Because this data, people have to draw meaning from the data and the map. And then from this meaning, it has to be actionable. So from data to meaning to action is critical, because without the action, then why are we doing this work, right? So essentially that action is where the policy aspect is. And a key issue with that is that we need to communicate better. Okay, we need to be able to communicate our findings to policy. Okay, and here again we have the problem of capacity, probably at the policy level. Capacity to understand what the scientists are doing is a challenge. Okay, and so there needs to be a lot of capacity building done also at the policy level, so that they are able to understand what is being done from the scientific perspective, and also from the science to communicate with the policymakers, so that whatever we are producing, these beautiful maps, this data that we are producing, is able to be derived in terms of meaning and then to be actionable. Exactly, because at the end of the day, it's about the action that comes out of it. Yes.
There's a certain conversation I was watching between a certain interviewer and the CEO of NVIDIA. And it was about the definition of being smart in this generation, with in the generation with AI, with machine learning and whatnot. Because previously, according to him, we used to think that the people who could build code were the smart people. But it's gone to a point whereby that's the number one thing that AI can do without any sweat. So the differential changes makes you question, are this really smart if AI can actually do it? And I love the position that you've put yourself in, because you're at the perfect confluence between data, policy, and also trying to look at the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And how everything is going to pan out. On a young professional perspective, how would you advise them to position themselves in this changing economies, especially thinking about from the policy side, the communication aspect, and the data side as well?
Yeah.
How would you advise young professionals to navigate through this?
Yeah, thank you. That's really important. I would tell the young people to focus on the problem, first of all, okay? Because for long, we have focused so much on the techniques, the tools, the algorithms, and as you've mentioned, you see what's happening now. The smart people, the ones who could create these algorithms, the ones who could stay nights with coding, and it's true, these are the smart people. And the problem is now with this, is that now AI has taken over and can do all this. So I would tell the young people, focus on the problem, okay? And then merge the problem with the techniques. Because then, if you have a good understanding of the problem and the context, okay? So you have a good understanding of problem, context, and the techniques, you become a very powerful individual in terms of being able to bridge that nexus of data, technique, and policy. Yeah, you're somebody who is able to communicate whatever it is that you're doing and even influence policy, and not just be the technical person, the techie behind the scenes. Because now AI is doing that. DeepSeek can code better than anybody. And so you really have to now become more of humane. That's what I can say. Be that human person who can go to the field, communicate with the people who are going through the problem, collect data, process it, and communicate it to the policymakers. Then you become a powerful person. But focus on the problem and on being that person who is sort of cutting across.
So it's not just about the analysis part, like someone just being too good at that.
No. If you're going to be just good at the techniques and the algorithms, it's been taken over. It's been taken over.
Well, the sad reality, guys.
That is the sad reality. And I was telling my students that we've been teaching you guys how to do this, how to code, how to go to Google Earth Engine, how to go to Python and do all this. But now you have to rethink. But this does not mean that the future is dim. Absolutely not. And I look back at when the World Wide Web came, and I think that was in the 90s. And our generation was called the .com generation.
Because of the WW.
Yes, yes, it came in the 90s. And that's when I was in the university. But even as we were finishing university, we really did not have much access to the internet. We had to go to the library to read. We had to go to the library, and the lecturer sends you and tells you, go and look for this journal. And there's one journal, okay? And you're 27 in the class, and you find somebody has borrowed it. What do? You wait.
Oh, wow.
Yes, you wait. So we grew up at a time when even the web was not there, okay? And then the web came, and we became the .com generation, and people got
scared. I can't really imagine growing without the
internet.
The internet, yeah.
And now you can't imagine working without even AI, right?
Yeah.
So as we started from even the internet, and then people were scared that jobs will be taken, what was previously being done manually. Now you have the internet
digital,
to search. Libraries, what's going to happen? You see, we had physical libraries. I don't know whether you know about the Macmillan Library in town. My dad used to take us there every week to read books. So, when now content became available digitally, people started worrying, what's going to happen to our books, physical books, and what have you, So there's always a worry about the future when a new major breakthrough technology, like now the internet in the 90s, and now the AI that is transforming everything. But remember also there was this cell phone. These cell phones became a big thing from the year 2000, thereabouts.
Yeah.
The people who had them earlier were really the rich people, because a handset was damn expensive. And just subscribing to the service was costing like 200,000. So you needed to be rich to afford a cell phone. Then when it scaled and became something that others could afford, what happened to Kodak, for instance? Right? Everybody had a small camera, or else you would hire the local photographer to come and take photos of you, and then they would be brought 1 month later.
Yeah, and the film lost the market.
Yes, but then what happened? The film lost the market.
Yeah.
Everything is on the phone now. So, but new jobs have been created as a result. New jobs, software engineering, what have you, mobile technology, etc. So even with the onset of AI, let's not fear the future, but let's see how we can work with it, because there will be new opportunities coming in for sure.
Right. Oh, wow. That's such a perfect paint of the light at the end of the tunnel.
There is.
Yeah, despite all this tension. All right. There's another question that most people, when I was informing them that I'll be having Dr. Pamela in the studio, some of them, majority of them are still in uni, were asking about, we all know about Sentinel, we know about Landsat, but they were really keen to understand, are there any new sensors or any new data sets that they should be really keen about and even start utilizing them that are modern and they are new in the market that can even have a greater impact? Do you have any maybe suggestions for them, like new sensors, new data sets that they can look into?
What I can talk about is new platforms, for instance, because, what Landsat, the beauty of Landsat and Sentinel is open access. Okay, open access with pretty good resolution, spatial resolution, and for Sentinel, temporal resolution as well, because every 5 days you can get revisit, okay?
Right.
It has a every 5 days revisit period if you combine Sentinel 2A and 2B. We cannot underestimate the power of open access. New data can come in, yes, but it's not magical. There's no magic. It's more about what are we doing with this data that's existing. So I would urge the students not to look out so much for new data, which is also coming up. For instance, Copernicus from the European Space Agency, the builders of Sentinels, there's a whole slew of Sentinels. Sentinel-2, Sentinel-3.
All right, up Sentinel
5, which is doing atmospheric monitoring. Exactly. So there's all those different Sentinels, and more are coming out. We have PlanetScope. So PlanetScope is a higher spatial resolution at about 3 meters and free for educational purposes. So you can get up to 5,000 kilometers squared free for analysis monthly.
Ooh, wow, 5,000, that's huge.
That's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah, unless you're really working with large areas, but monthly, that's pretty good. And you can get it for free as long as you register with an institutional address like TUC or UN or DECUD or whichever university, but not Gmail. So those opportunities, but what I would urge the young people is, work with what is available openly, and let's try and derive meaning and action from what we monitor. Not so much of newer and newer techniques that end up not being impactful at the end of the day.
Wow.
So focus on spatial resolution, temporal. And you see, when you're looking at disaster, temporality is important because you need, say, for instance, daily revisit. And this is available with, say, for instance, MODIS data, although MODIS has now been decommissioned, but we have follow-up satellites on that. And we really need to be grateful that we have open access data, because this is a game changer for African scientists. You know, Africa with our resource challenges, but we have access to satellites that have been launched by NASA, that have been launched by ESA, and, you know, a planet and all these people. So we should make use of what's existing and derive meaning from it and look at, you know, the benefits of spatiality, temporality, and spectrality. Okay, what we can get from that. And it's a lot. Yeah.
I don't think I can add to anything that you've said because it's been well spoken. And also following back also on one of your posts that you did, I saw that you were in the African Space Agency when it was being launched. Is that right?
No. Yeah. I was in the African Space Agency in December. In Egypt, for a GMS and Africa conference. Phase 2 conference, yes.
Yeah. If I may ask, what's your perspective about Earth observation in Africa from that point of view of the African Space Agency? Like in terms of space itself, satellites, our own data sets that are tailored to our own problems here in Africa. What's your perspective about the future?
I see a bright future. I definitely see a bright future. I think the other day we had a combined satellite launched for Uganda, Kenya, and was it Egypt?
Kenya has launched a satellite?
Well, it's combined, so it's a whole collaboration.
Because I remember Typho 1.
We don't know what happened to that one.
It's classified.
So, but there was a satellite that was launched a few days ago, and it's a combined effort between Kenya, Uganda, and Egypt. And for me, I think the future is really bright for Africa in this regard, because we have the opportunity of creating or co-creating satellites and instruments that are adapted to our particular context, okay? However, it needs a lot of collaboration with the established powers, for instance, because they have the technology, and so why reinvent the wheel? Understand? So we need to come together as Africans, pitch our resources, identify our common problems, and create instruments that are targeted to solving those particular problems, okay? But as well, we need to collaborate still with the ESA, because right now there's a lot of North-South collaborations, especially the Europeans. I think the Americans also are trying, but there's a lot more from the Europeans. And British as well. You know, the British are not in the European Union. So let's take advantage of these collaborations to build our own unique sort of Earth observation space. And I see the future is quite bright. And also, I see a future whereby we will be having more African-led initiatives. And I think let's look forward to the future in that aspect.
Actually, speaking about the future and how bright it is, there's so many young professionals and even students in uni, leave alone that the other day we were in for some mentorship with GeoSisters, and I realized how keen the year 9s are at trying to identify potential careers for themselves. So they're trying to inform them about geospatial, which is more or less like a new concept in their minds. And they were asking on the side of the pathway that they can take to make an impact on in the world. It's actually really, really fascinating that year 9s are thinking about impact, not money. A job. I don't know how most of us were thinking that they only need money to survive on this planet. So what is the path that you can advise young professionals, the students, and potentially even the year 9s out there who are also starting to follow us on our social media? Like, what is the path that you'd advise them if for them to make the absolute and the greatest impact on the planet on the utilization of geospatial as a discipline? Like the pathway in school, maybe data, maybe how to learn the communication, the policy aspect, how to merge all the two and even be someone of impact.
Thank you so much. It's amazing that you say the year 9s are very interested in
they are.
Impact.
I
think it's because of the pathways that they have been forced to think about early in life, rather than us who you reached Form 4 and you're given a form and told tick, you know. But you see, these guys from as early as, grade 6, KPSEA, what have you, then they're told, now you start thinking about your pathways. Are you strong in the sciences? Are you strong in the arts and stuff? So that could have an impact in why they're already thinking of, what they can do and what impact. My thinking in terms of if they want to make a great impact in this area of Earth observation is, first of all, position themselves technically. That is always important. And one thing that I always say we were not taught in the university, and I think is a shortcoming of engineering and sciences, is the soft skills, right? So you are taught you're good in math, you're good in physics, do the calculations, you're able to do this full stop. But then you find somebody with, say, a communications degree coming to be your boss. Not that it's bad, but being a boss because they're able to communicate your findings to the public. To the public and to the policymakers. Mm-hmm. And I always struggled with this, thinking that why can't we, be our own, boss in that way? So let them learn both the hard skills, which is the computations, the soft skills. Let them network a lot. Networking is critical. Let's not hide our heads in the sand. Mm-hmm. Networking is critical. You must be able to know who is doing what, who is who. Come to platforms like GeoHabari. Let your voice be heard, okay? So that then you're able to make an impact. Work with the people on the ground. Talk to the locals. They have what you call local knowledge, and local knowledge is very important. Let's not underestimate that. So if you combine technical skills, soft skills, fieldwork skills, and then also the ability to publish and create policy briefs that can reach policymakers, then you're on your way to making a great impact. Mm-hmm. So look at it as an all-rounded area, not just I need to do math and physics and do the calculations and close the traverses and do the calculations for remote sensing. Not just that. Look at it in a more holistic manner and ask yourself the why. The why question is very important. Why am I doing this? The why. Not just the what you're doing, but the why. And when the why is clear, that's the problem. Then you're able to reach the people who matter and to make the most impact. And also collaborate. Collaboration is very critical across different disciplines. If you stay in your own silo of I'm an Earth observation scientist and that's what I do and I produce my maps and they sit here, they would make much impact.
Collaboration with which other industries in particular?
Collaborate with professionals from different industries. For instance, me, I worked with agricultural professionals for the first 15 years of my Earth observation or geospatial life.
Yeah.
And then I moved to insect science, whereby I did honeybees
that
for
was
my
at
PhD.
ISIPE, I think.
At ISIPE.
Uh-huh.
So the first 15 years with agricultural specialists was in ILRI. Okay, yeah. That's fresh after campus. Mm-hmm. And then when I was doing my PhD with ISIPE, okay, those are insect scientists, biology people. Mm-hmm. And then now I finish and I'm working with archaeologists. But this is because Earth observation is such a flexible tool and a very versatile area to work in. Literally, you can work with bankers. You can work with, with Ubers, and Bolts and all these. They're called what? The taxi hailing apps.
Yeah.
Because what? They need to know where their customers are, how the customers evolve during the day, where the Ubers can go to maximize on impact. And therefore, we are literally able to work with all professionals as long as space. And when I say space is involved, I don't mean outer space, but I mean spatially. Location XY. As long as there's a location XY, we can work with them. So collaborate across disciplines. And newer disciplines are coming in every day. So the ability or the opportunity to collaborate with all these different areas of professions is big. Yes.
Wow.
And this is where the opportunities lie.
You actually mentioned about the archaeology, and I'm not going to lie, I'm still baffled by the thought that remote sensing is applied in archaeology.
Yeah.
Do you want to give like a snippet on your day-to-day life when it comes to researching on archaeology? Like, how does remote sensing help in that side?
Okay, thank you so much. So it was a steep learning curve for me, and let me not underestimate also you as a professional that you must be willing, open-minded, curious about other areas. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go into archaeology and I'm new to it, and I have to learn about the nuances of archaeology. So archaeologists, they are looking at the past,
yeah,
and trying to reconstruct it. And what is a major thing in looking at the past? The landscape, okay? So you have the landscape. People were living in it. What were they doing in it? Were they cooking? So that they can say, aha, this area, we have found little bit of pot shards, and therefore this means that there was settlement here, okay? Mm-hmm. There's a stone walling structure. I don't know how many of you know Gede. Gede, this is in Malindi. Near Malindi, I think, Gede ruins.
Oh, yeah.
Gede ruins is humongous, yes. So I went to some of these places for the first time as a postdoctoral researcher under the MySam project. And my day-to-day consists of learning a lot and looking for sites. So for instance, we use Google Earth Pro to systematically search grids to find evidence of archaeology. So from Google Earth Pro, which have high resolution spatially, we are able to see, for instance, burial sites in northern Kenya. And these, if you go to the ground, they look like mounds of stone. From above, they have a very typical signature, spectral signature, and also physical appearance.
Really?
Yes, which enables us to pick them out. In a day, I can get 100. I can actually identify 100 or more.
So like
of the burial sites.
In a day, you can get 100 spectral indices.
Not spectral indices, but using the spectral indices for, say, burial sites or enclosures and how they appear, I can pick out more than 100 in a day using systematic search in Google Earth Pro, which has high spatial resolution.
So like in terms of picking the signatures?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yes. So that's one. The other, so that is an identification of these archaeological sites. But then there's also monitoring. That is the other part that I love so much. So with monitoring, you're looking at what are the threats to these archaeological sites, because we know that there's a risk of losing our heritage. And one of the papers that you mentioned about Digital Earth Africa was actually a paper written with my MySam colleagues. I was the lead on that project. And we were looking at coastal erosion in 3 countries, that is Kenya, Tanzania, and Senegal, and how coastal erosion due to climate change is affecting or is going to affect heritage sites along the coast. And you know how much we have a lot of heritage sites along the coast. You know, even Fort Jesus is in Mombasa.
Yeah.
We have there's a lot, okay? There's a lot of heritage sites along the coast. So it had results showing that whether the coast is going to growing means that you have sand piling up, or the coast is eroded. There's a lot of risk to this heritage site. So that's on the monitoring aspect. So I do a lot of monitoring as well. Currently, I'm also working on a project looking at LabSet and its effects on heritage.
Oh, LabSet, the corridor.
And also there's a paper I published first as a very new postdoc in 2022 on, we have these traditional wells that are dug in northern Kenya and southern Ethiopia because they have the same sort of climatic zones. They are arid, semi-arid areas. And so they dig very deep wells with a very very distinct appearance. So if you look at it from space, you can tell that this is a well. So I looked at what are the risks in terms of anthropogenic risks and also natural risks to these wells. And we published a very good paper, quite a high impact paper on that. So essentially, then this kind of identification and monitoring is able to inform where strategies, interventions should be taken if you want to minimize risks and threats to these archaeological sites. Where should you go?
You know, I love how passionate you just got when you're talking about the archaeological aspect of remote sensing.
Yeah.
I can see you're the perfect embodiment of someone who should actually be doing research on that. So
thank you.
Kudos to you. So anyway, I'm saying like our time is really rushing. So I'd rather like to jump into this the last part, which I usually love asking. Last time I asked you what your younger self will have been proud about, but this time around, allow me to just tweak it a bit. Looking back, what is the young Dr. Pamela, or by that time she wasn't called doctor. So I'm guessing what would young Pamela have probably have done differently if she had been given a chance to go back in time again, rather would have wanted to know more about?
Thank you so much for that really pertinent question. That's very pertinent.
It's time for self-reflection here.
Self-reflection time. Usually we say that, the path that you've taken is the path that God intended for you, which is great. Yeah, but again, it's also good to have the self-reflection. And I always say that I wish in the first 15 years of my life I had a lot more self-belief then, in terms of the spaces I could enter into, the influence I could actually have. But at the time, I say priorities were maybe different, raising a young family, not willing to risk too much. And so I was comfortable. I was in a comfort space, in a comfort zone. But I always say, if I use that first 15 years of my very young life in a way that I am doing now, I think I would have been in a very different space. But again, you could say that those first 15 years could have been the building blocks of what I am now. So on one hand, I always say that I wish I knew then. But on the other hand, I'm thankful for those first 15 years because they were the building blocks and they made me what I am now.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a way, in a way, it's just also to encourage young people to do not expect miracles. I see nowadays, because I have a lot of young people on my status, and they're always saying, 20s, we need to do this or that. But be patient with yourself and build slowly. Be willing to build slowly, and the results will show up. They will show up. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like as though I also ended up into a moment of retrospection there when you were starting to mention that.
Yeah.
But I guess it's good. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having stayed through this particular episode. And as I said earlier on, this is our guest, Dr. Pamela Ochungo. And you can follow her. Please feel free to do so on LinkedIn as Dr. Pamela Ochungo as well, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, just feel free to reach out there, connect. And in case you have any question, feel free to just poke her on the chat or messages and ask her any questions that you might have. But yeah, that has actually been it. And it's been an absolute pleasure actually having you. Thank you so much once again. You have no idea because there's a conversation we were having with Charles Mwangi from Kenya Space Agency. And he was telling me how most people nowadays try to romanticize being busy. Well, in real sense, it's actually not as cool as it seems.
Yeah.
Like to just try and imply importance or probably the fact that they are needed somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you are the perfect embodiment of whatever we were having the conversation about, because I just it was actually a call. I was like, hey, Dr. Pamela, are you keen? An episode, your fans really need you on in the studio, and it's a live recording. You're like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. I'll look at my calendar, but I should be free from this and this day. I'm like, okay, that was fast. I expected maybe you'd have connected me to your secretary or something, but
No.
I'm glad. I'm really, really glad. But yeah, until next time, I've been your host, Linus Narian. Please feel free to make any comment or ask any questions about the next episode and maybe the next guest that you'd like to have on this particular segment. But yeah, have a good one.
Thank you so much. Bye.
This is the Geo Habari podcast.